Hello again there everybody, Brandon here coming to you from my channel. I've got a walkthrough video of this particular project in this episode. This was a commissioned request, a little bit different this time, where I'm pulling two scenes together from photographs that they sent me and making it one scene, which is what they requested. So if you want to have a look at my process for getting this done, let's go do it now. Alright, now as I mentioned, I was sent this particular photo first. It's a sunset over the Blue Ridge Mountains, and then he also sent me this photo, a random shot of the Grand Canyon that he wanted combined into one scene. Blue Ridge Mountains fading over into the Grand Canyon. So this is a quick Photoshop I just sent for reference to get his approval. And once he saw this image, he said, yep, that's what I'm looking for. So we combined that into one image. I am using an 18 by 24 canvas here. Pencil sketched out essentially where I wanted to go with the project. And then starting now with the sky, this was just mainly starting with some touch of phthalo blue and a lot of white, a little bit of black to gray it out. And then bringing that down here with some yellow right at the horizon where the sun was going to be setting, blending them together with a lot of white here, just kind of creating a fade. And I wanted to lay in my background here of the distant mountain range, Blue Ridge. So this is some phthalo blue with a touch of red in it, a little bit of white to desaturate it out a little bit to create that distance. And then a little more saturation here as I move forward. Just using a little 1-inch wash brush to lay in these colors at this point. Right now I'm just laying in background color to establish my original landscape areas and shapes, and then everything else will be a process of coming back in and layering over the top of it. So now I'm a foreground hillside here. This is just blotching it in with some green and some black. And then over here where this Grand Canyon is going to be, I'm laying in a little color just to kind of get an idea where this is going to go. I'll be honest, I've never painted any kind of canyon type of landscape before, so this section I felt like was going to require the most time and trial and error for me, having not done it before. So I laid in a little bit of color here just to kind of get an idea where that might go, and then decided that that area was going to definitely take the most work in terms of getting my shadows and shapes and things correct on it. So I moved off of it for now, come back up here to this foreground. I'm basically just laying in some tree line texture here with a variety of brown and black and green, and then working on the sunset here. This is starting to put in cloud formations, so I've moved to a smaller angled brush now to start laying in these cloud formations. And this is really just playing with color. You'll notice here as I am starting with shades of purples and pinks and oranges and things that I'm just mixing here on the palette. And then this is all in acrylics, so my palette here is literally just a piece of wax paper on top of a moistened paper towel, so it keeps my acrylics pliable, it keeps them from drying up, where I can keep going back in and mixing almost like you would oil colors on the palette, and then not worry about it drying up on me, so I can continue to go back and forth, change these colors up, fade things in and out. So you'll see me introducing a little bit of blues on the corners, darkening things up, but I'll keep coming back over top of things time and time again here, adding little different variations in the colors, fading things in and out, getting a little bit more of the blue darker stuff out here on these edges that are away from the sun. And then the sun will be at its brightest kind of right there in that middle point here, so I bring in more oranges here towards the middle, and ultimately we're going to bring in some bright yellow and white to show where the sun is really shining through the brightest. But these clouds are just a matter of being patient with these things. Lots of layers, lots of going back to the palette, back and forth, adding little changes to the colors, to the saturations, putting highlights in where I feel like the sun would be catching the bottoms of some of these things. And then just, you step back from it and you look at it and you say, okay, maybe I need to add a little bit more here, a little bit more there, change this color a little bit, fade this color a little bit better. Again, it's just a matter of trial and error for me, and putting colors in, seeing how I like it, adjusting them if I want to adjust them, back and forth, multiple passes on some of this stuff until I get it looking the way I want. So the brightest part of the sun saturation is going to be right here in this area that I'm working now in the middle. So I'm adding a touch of white and fading that in to give it the brightest area right down the center there. And then adding lots of little changes of color around those areas. Most distant there where the sun can be hitting and doing a wide variety of things. So lots of color change in there. Putting in a couple of foreground trees here that were in the photo. Basically, it's just dropping in tree trunks and branches here. The one thing I will point out here is when you're staring at the brightest spot here where that sun is, it really makes it hard to make out the tree itself. So I get really thin with the lines that I make right in that brightest area because the sun is almost burning through that when you look at it, where you can't even really see it. So it's an effect that you don't necessarily think about painting it that way, but if you really look at it in real life or look at the picture of it, you can definitely see what I'm talking about in terms of the brightness of the sun making it very hard to make out the tree in that area. So I painted it that way to create that illusion. Now moving back here to the Grand Canyon area, again, I have never painted this type of landscape before with these types of shapes and ridges. So this was going to be my biggest, just putting color in and seeing what happens. So I'm creating shadows to the left sides of everything that I feel like the sun would not be hitting, and then creating highlights in brighter areas on the right sides of these objects where the sun would be hitting, and just seeing how this landscape takes shape. So putting the real dark shadows into the deep part of the canyon itself, and then working around it here. And I kind of go back and forth in a few places, especially down here in the center part towards the bottom, where I eventually create an entire dark canyon area that at this point is not even really even there, but you'll see me get to it in a minute. So that kind of orangey glow of the sunset, I wanted to bring that in on the areas that I felt like would be hitting or catching the most sun. So I added a touch of red to my mix there to create that a little bit, and then it's just a matter of creating some shapes and some structures that you see when you look at something like the Grand Canyon. So again, this was going to be a bit of a trial and error for me to figure it out. Now you see I'm starting to add some more shadow in here with some blues and a touch of black to desaturate things, and come in here and try to figure out how I want this thing to go. And I take a couple of passes here before I figure out exactly how I want this to look. And then I kind of figure out that, okay, the best thing to do is to bring the canyon right down through the middle here. And so I darken up the deepest areas there where the most shadow is, creating the depth that I wanted, and then bringing out the ridges alongside of it where some light would be hitting it, where you'd actually be able to see what was going on. A little touches to the foreground rock formation here just to create some ridges and some structure to it. And I finally got to a point where I was pretty happy with that end result. So again, a little bit different project this time. Here's some close-up of the area right where the brightest part of the sun would be burning through, so you can see that detail. And when you step back from this project and look at it from a distance, I was pretty pleased with the end result. I think it's a project that I hope that the owner of it that requested it will be happy with. So hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. Until next time, happy painting, everybody.